try to reach out and learn a little bit more outside of marketing material. So THC is a perfect place where you guys share information. What Halbert was saying, that educate is the second one, right? Gather, educate, and that is, I think it's fantastic.
Welcome to the Horology Club's second anniversary party. My name is Jacqueline Chan. I'm one of the co-founders of the Horology Club, and it is my honor to be your host for today's panel. The title is going to be The Watch Industry in 2023, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Quite a broad topic, but we'll talk about the industry, how it's changed in the last few years, post the pandemic, and how trends have changed. So, joining us, we have four of the most influential figures in the industry, particularly in Asia, driving the industry forward and leading the charge. So on the very right, we have Carson Chan, the watch professor, founder of Watch Professor Academy, educator extraordinaire, basically a walking encyclopedia of all things horological. Welcome, Carson. Then we have Jacqueline Ng. She is CEO and Managing Director of Swiss Prestige Hong Kong, one of the leading distributors ever since their inception in 1988, carrying some of the most exciting brands such as Global 4C, Arm & Strom, and Roman Gautier. Welcome, Jacqueline. Then we have Benjamin Chee, owner and founder of his eponymous brand, Benjamin Chee Haute Horlogerie. He is also owner of two other brands, Celadon and Millicron. His creations have been nominated for the GPHG, and they continue to be some of the most beautiful timepieces you can find in the market today. Welcome, Benjamin. And then we have Louis Yeung, editor-in-chief of watch publication Another Watch magazine, as well as director of A Watch Company, representing, once again, very exciting brands such as Akrivia, Kari Voutilainen, and Habring. Welcome, Louis. Okay, so let's jump straight in. Obviously, the industry has changed a lot in the last few years. Even watches from independent brands sell themselves, which wasn't always the case. So, first question is directed at Jacqueline. Given your long, extensive history with indies, what have you found as the most challenging period or thing in your career?
How much time do we have? Well, frankly speaking, I think, it has been very challenging to deal with indies. And yes, there are also lots of fun and pleasure to work together with them. But the challenge has been there since the first day. Only a few years ago, if you look at the market, the independent watch market was basically very sluggish. Apart from few renowned brands, collectors basically were very hesitant to invest on indie. We were fighting very hard on the market, even with the full support from the brand. Yes, collectors see indies, they find it challenging, interesting, and they see obviously there's a different value, but they were just very conservative. They don't want to invest on it. It just happened a few years ago. Today, the collector become much more a key player in the industry, and they are more convinced, they're more motivated. They come to us. They come to us for indie. How beautiful. But we could not deliver. We could not deliver. I mean, everything happened so quickly just within a few years. And yes, in terms of business, we are doing a better business right now, but not that much better than before because we could not do it better because we do not get the delivery. In the past, we get what we order. Now we get allocation based on a so-called fixed percentage. And with a limited allocation, we have to split among our network. Sometimes it is quite stressful, I must say. And the solution as a distributor, we have to adapt and we have to change by carrying a bit more different brands. In the past, we mainly focused on like 5 to 6 brands, and we are working on a better quality profile. Today, we are carrying more than 10 brands, and to secure enough quantity for our region. all in all, you see, this is a very small business, and I will not call it as a business either. I call it as a hobby.
Obviously, in the past few years, a big uptick in this independent interest has come from education. There's more and more collectors understanding indies. And one of the leading figures in this aspect is obviously Carson. So next question is for you, Carson. You work with so many brands, you know so many people. How do you maintain unbiased, but also keeping a good relationship with all these brands?
Well, first of all, you have to have a good foundation in understanding. You need to know what you're talking about. You need to have a clear understanding of the history. A lot of brands, the challenge for most people is that I think when you're doing research, when you are trying to find information, trying to understand, certain brand is claiming they are the first to do this, or a certain brand is claiming that they're the first to do that. I think the challenge today is that on the market we have a lot of these marketing influenced information. I don't like to say tainted, but it is marketing driven. So it is not exactly wrong, but it's not 100% correct. So for me, in my part, I need to be very clear in terms of when I work with a brand, what sort of message are we presenting? I don't like to be too commercial. I've never been keen on trying to move pieces for brands, but in terms of promoting watches in the culture, in the technology, in the movement aspect, I'm very happy to do that. So I think to answer you, it's important to understand and not just soak in what the brand tells you. You have to have a good understanding of that. And I think the way I see, I think today most of the media, whether it's online or print, whether they like it or not, it's very apparent. The center of focus has shifted to investment angle. I think whatever magazine or article you read online, bloggers, even the famous guy who posted a video rant about a brand that didn't invite him to go to a Tokyo event. I mean, the underlying message of that video, I mean, on the surface of it, it might be a rant, it might be a complaint on how, but it's actually telling you about investing and flipping watches. And I think that's the danger. So for me, I think everyone in the room, try to reach out and learn a little bit more outside of marketing material. So THC is a perfect place where you guys share information. What Helbert was saying, that educate is the second one, right? Gather, educate, and that is, I think it's fantastic.
Thank you, Carson. Obviously, besides from the education part of it, a very important chief element in terms of this deciding what watch is popular is obviously the product itself, the design element. So the next question is for Benjamin. As a brand owner, you've obviously designed watches for your own brands. You've also collaborated with other brands like Anderson Genève on the World Timer Celestial Voyager. How different do you find the design process when it's a collaboration compared to your own brand? And do you often find yourself keeping the best designs for yourself?
So under BCHH and Celadon HH, all my watches and timepieces, clocks and that sort of thing, are all collaborations. So there isn't really a separation between my designs and the collaborative designs, because my strength is not as a watchmaker. I mean, I have very little technical skills. Primarily what I do is I create a vision of the watch or horological work that I want to create, and then I find the best people, the best watchmakers, clockmakers and artisans to actualize that vision. And then my my drive is to create something that has never been done before and that none of the watchmakers have created themselves. So if you look at my own watches, they're very different from the watches that they themselves create. For example, with Anderson's World Timers, there is a very distinct design language difference with my Celestial Voyager. For example, with the eagle wing lugs, the cloisonné enamel, which is obviously the highlight of the watch. And with Celadon HH, they're very different from Lin Yonghua's own watches, the master watchmaker that we collaborate with. So I don't keep the best for myself, I think that would not be wise at all. There's definitely an element of collaboration, and they take care of the technical aspects. I take care of the design and the creation and sort of masterminding the entire production process of the watch or the clock. One thing I would say there is a bit of keeping the best for myself element to it would be creating watches for myself personally. Most of my brands started as me simply wanting to create something that didn't exist, and realizing that more than a few people actually wanted to buy them as well. So realizing that this could be a true brand, rather than just producing watches for myself. But there are watches that are so niche that I think really less than 5 people in the entire world would want them. So, those are probably some designs that I would keep for myself. For example, with the upcoming Stratosphera, we have the astronomical pocket watch, so to speak, but I am creating a sort of classical pocket watch that is based on that, but completely different. And, ironically, that's probably more classical in design. And when you guys see it, you'll sort of understand, but it's a very special piece.
Well, it sounds very exciting, and I can't wait to see it. We've talked about education, we've talked about the product, but obviously a very important element in the watch, the whole manufacture and the whole process of it is the distribution. So, Louis, obviously you're one of the pioneers of independent watchmaking, particularly here in Hong Kong. How do you feel about the fact that in the past few years, with the rise of these popularity of indies, they're oftentimes, we touched upon it earlier, that they sell themselves, and oftentimes they might even bypass the retailer and just sell direct. How do you feel about this? How do you challenge that? And what role do you feel like retailers should play in the future of independent watchmaking?
I feel sad. but actually this is the trend because of the digital world, because of the IG, Facebook, people are easily, the information are easily accessible. So people, the collectors, they can read the information on the internet, on the social media. So the trend of I think the role of the agent or the distributor in Hong Kong is becoming less and less. And the brand would sell directly, and the collectors will buy directly from the brands. This is the trend that we cannot skip, we cannot avoid. But at the same time, what we are selling maybe is the customer service, after-sale service. If you have the problem with the watches, we can take care of that for you. But I think it's really difficult, but that's the trend that we have to accept, we have to adapt. And then so that I can retire. And like Jacqueline said, I think 10 years ago when I started to represent independent brands in Hong Kong, no one would look at those brands. For example, like even like Carry Voutilainen or Grandfeld. People, when I try to sell them the watch, they would say, what is that? And how much would it cost maybe after 2 years if I want to sell the watch? And it's nothing actually. So at that time, if you want to persuade people to buy an independent brand, it's really, really difficult. But nowadays, they will come to you. But as Jacqueline said, we have no delivery, we have no quota at all. So don't come to me for any aggravia.
Maybe Jacqueline, you're also in the distribution business. Maybe you can add some. Do you have any extra thoughts on that?
Well, I feel relatively relaxed. I have a different perspective. I'm in 2002. 202, yes, 202. Don't wonder about my age, because I start working at a very young age. So when I moved from Source Group to Swiss Prestige as a distributor, I had a retail partner. He warned me. He said, Jacqueline, there will have no more role for distributor in the watch industry. And at that time, I felt so much insecure that I almost resigned next day. And today, in 2023, 21 years later, I'm here speaking as a distributor. So I personally believe the role as a distributor and retailer will always be there. And everything is a cycle. If you have a good time, you do a bigger business. If the time is not with you, you remain small. As a distributor, basically we are running a very small business unit, and there will be always some brand need our support and help. So we will be always there. But retailer is working on a much more different scale. And today I see also some of the retailers very much struggling to hold up their brands. And yes, the changes is in the air, but you see very much that they are also trying to adapt. They try to reposition themselves, they try to do something, and they try to focus more on independent brands. We just need to adapt. And I will not be able to tell you what will be happening in 5 years or in 10 years. But I believe, the market has its own pattern, and no matter what happens, we will always find a way to go through with it.
Can I add?
Of course.
I also agree with Jacqueline. I think it's not a trend, it's a necessity. It is a commercial activity. So when a brand is asking a distributor to help, it's because they need them. And once the brand has grown to a certain level, they don't need them anymore. You don't see this only in watches, you see this in fashion, in F&B, in many different business sectors. So once they have grown, they can move, but you're gonna have new businesses that need help. So this is, I think this is a cycle. Of course, Jacqueline stated that I think the market is changing. You see Rolex purchasing Bucherer, and a lot of speculation thinking that they are going to do a lot more distribution on their own. AP has almost dropped everyone, and the biggest question mark now is, will Patek follow the trend? So you see, when the brand is strong enough to do it, when they don't need a distributor's help, they don't need it. They're going to move on. So then you're going to have other brands coming up, smaller brands that they're going to do. Now, is it going to be more challenging? Yes, because I think because of the online business, online platform, you can buy online, you can sell it online. You might not need a distributor as much as you do as before. So it's definitely a challenge, but I think it will not disappear in the flesh.
With some time? Well, this is a new business model, I think, and eventually you will play a new direction. You find a few brands, they're very keen to do direct themselves, even though a few independent, they follow, they try to do direct themselves. Eventually, a few of them may find, they don't really need distributor, they don't really need retailer, they can do direct them themselves. A few may find to cope with retailer, to do it together with retailer, and I'm so sure, many of them, they'll realize that it's way too difficult for them to handle directly, and they will go back 100% to the retailer. I will not underestimate the role of a retailer, because I'm a distributor. I have been working with them for many years, and I see very much complicated, struggling, challenging, cost involvement, effort beyond what you can imagine to be as a retailer, particularly in Hong Kong. And I don't believe most of them, they can do it by themselves.
What do you think, Benjamin? Obviously, as a brand owner, do you underestimate the power of the retailer?
I do not. I think times have changed a lot. So there's obviously a lot more you know, the digital aspect. So Instagram, social media, meetups like this where collectors sort of know each other and meet up is a lot more prevalent than it was in, you know, the old days. Not that I was around for the old days, but I heard from that, you know. But I would not underestimate the power of a good retailer, you know. As with everything, I think it's quality over quantity, right? So you should curate your retailer. So I have a really excellent retailer here, and you know, it's important that he understands your brand, you know, because I'm a collector-driven brand, obviously. So it's important that we share the same values, we speak the same language, so to speak, and he understands where I want to take my brand in the next 10, 20, 50, maybe even 100 years, you know. And it's important that we're sort of of the same size as well. So I wouldn't want to deal with a really huge faceless retailer, because that, you know, there's a disconnect, you know, because I'm not a huge 100-year-old brand. So I would not want a retailer that's used to dealing with such brands. I would want someone who is similar to me, you know, on the path of establishing something new and fresh and creating something that the watch industry has never seen before. So, you know, I think it's important to curate your retailers around the world, and that's exactly what I've done. After having worked with a few retailers, distributors around in some countries that are, you know, perhaps we had some unpleasant experiences after, I sort of learned along the way that it's important to choose the right retailer, you know, that represents you well.
The next question is for you, Louis. So obviously, with you representing all these exciting upcoming independent brands, has there been any brand that you feel is really exciting to you, coming up with innovative, creative timepieces, and you're very excited to see what they've got coming in the next few years?
It's a really difficult question. Well, I think most of the upcoming brands, I think at the beginning, the production scale or the capacity of that brand would be very, very small. So maybe they would prefer to sell directly. And as we saw in Watches and Wonders this year in Geneva, some of the brands, the small, tiny brands, they are really, really beautiful. Really, really good. For example, like the Simon Bright, I don't know how to pronounce. That one is really nice, but when you understand more, you would find that he is actually an engineer. So that means he is asking someone to make the watch for him. It will affect the future development of the brand, I would say, because the production was controlled by somebody else. So I really like the brand, but I cannot foresee how good it will be. But also there are some other brands which are really, really good. I think Carson would know more than me.
Go ahead, Carson. Give us a few little tips.
Well, focus over here. It's for sure, guys. I think it's for me. We just finished the Only Watch exhibition. For me, it's Ferland Mare. I think it's phenomenal. This tiny brand, 2 years old, first came out with a mega quartz movement watch, then coming out with the automatic. And if you were at the Only Watch, you will see they are, if I'm not mistaken, I think they are the number 3 or number 4 brand that has ever been able to produce a secular perpetual calendar. I think the other 2 were Anderson and Frank Muller. And of course, if you speak to the founder, you will understand that after the Only Watch, they will very likely be launching a production model, very much like the F. Pigeon Coppola watch, right? So if and he is planning to launch a perpetual calendar at a retail price of under 50,000 Hong Kong dollars. I mean, this is a very, very amazing initiative that he's taking. Of course, that 50,000, I don't think that will be a secular perpetual. But I am waiting for the day that he would do a secular perpetual calendar. For those of you, secular perpetual, when you go buy a perpetual calendar, all the brands will tell you, oh, you need to bring it back in 2100. We need to set the watch for you. Because most of the perpetual calendar that we have today does not know how to adjust when we get to a century year. But you saw last year the AP came out with the RD4, which they call it a half Gregorian calendar, which is not as complicated as the secular perpetual. Of course, the RD4 is a lot more complicated because it's combined with other complications. But in terms of just the perpetual calendar, I think the Ferlamari, for me, knowing the price that they're going to launch it, it's a phenomenal brand. I love it. Everybody should stay tuned. I've seen some things that I should not talk about, but I think it's a very exciting project that it's gonna come out.
Amazing. Well, maybe one closing question for each one of you. Given the recent pessimistic economic outlook, high interest rates, potential doomsday scenario with a bit of World War III, World War IV, how do you feel like this is going to affect the demand of watches? And as fans and collectors yourselves, how do you assess what kind of watch you think is worth buying? Maybe we'll start with Carson.
I think it's important to realize watches is the only category that has gone through a transformation. It went from a necessity to luxury. There's no other consumer product that went through this change. 1960s, 1970s, when you buy a watch, you need it. You need it for your life depend on it. If you're a diver, if you're a pilot, you need the watch to work well. That kind of transformation, I mean, if it's, let me come back. When you're buying something that you no longer need, you just want it. You can think about art, painting, jewelry. You don't need it, you want it. So I think watches has successfully transformed into this new realm, and it's here to stay. Whether the economy will cool down, whether people won't be able to make money off of watches, I think it's here to stay. I think the most important aspect is, even though I'm the watch professor, I want the market to raise its level in education. The more you understand, the more you will enjoy and appreciate it. I mean, this goes the same with whether you collect wine, you collect painting. The more you understand wine, the more enjoyment you're going to get out of it. Whether the bottle of wine is going to make you money, I think that will become secondary once your level of knowledge is up to a certain level. That's my take.
Jacqueline, what do you think? What would you assess before buying a watch?
Well, this is very personal, and I'm working in the industry as an insider, so my perspective is a little bit different when it comes to make a choice. When I buy a watch, it could be very emotional. I do not buy a watch. I basically buy a language, buy a spirit, I buy an experience. Thanks to my work, and I have been able to work with different kind of brand, and from Longines to Global 4C, and I have a privilege to understand, to learn from different kind of manufacturer. So I see quite many things, and to me, every single brand, every single watch has a different language with a very unique value and spirit. When you're talking about Rolex, everybody knows they're speaking about successful and achievement. When you're speaking about Patek Philippe, it's talking about legacy. Global 4C is talking about truly mechanical art. Longines is speaking about an attitude. Omega is about a choice, even though Oris is about go your own way. So when I come to the time I would like to buy a watch, I first look at the watch and I try to understand the language. If I understand which I can afford it, and just go for it.
I think the most important thing for me in buying a watch is it's got to have substance. So I think the price of a watch should be the very last thing that one looks at when one, decides whether to acquire that piece. Because, I mean, a watch is one of the few things on earth that can cost $10 or $10 million. And there are a few things that have that huge spectrum of price. And I have watches that cost maybe even $1, or they were basically free. But they're still extremely valuable to me because they have substance. And obviously price is somewhat correlated with quality because quality will never be cheap. But I think that's not the only thing we should focus on. There's this emphasis on flex culture, in recent years, which is a bit sad really for the watch community because there must be a bit more intellectual, dissection, analysis of a watch. And, a watch can be inexpensive, but can have some historical relevance as well. That there could be a pioneering characteristic about it, a technical detail, a design detail maybe, a simple thing like a swatch perhaps. Save the Swiss watch industry, and that it's inexpensive, right? I grew up with those flick-flack swatch watches, and they carry a certain memory for me, even though they were not high-end or high horology watches. Well, obviously, high horology watches will always have some significance because of the very fact of their quality, of their design, of their groundbreaking attributes. But I think the story of a watch, should be its key focus. What story does it tell? It could be the provenance, it could be who wore it, who owned it, where it was worn to, all sorts of things, just a simple design detail even. And, in my collection, I have watches that are from, $10 all the way to a bit more expensive than that. And they all have that same trait. They share that substance, So that's primarily what I look for in a watch.
What about you, Louis?
For me, it's pretty simple. I think it's very personal, just like wines, just like food. If you like it, if you can afford it, just go ahead, go buy it. No matter what brand, what kind of watches, what kind of function, what kind of brands. If you like it, if you can afford it, you buy it, simply. It's very personal.
Well, I think we've got a bit of time, so maybe we're going to open the floor to one or two questions. Anyone would like to put the speakers on the spot? If not, then, there you go, Tom.
Hi everybody. What do you expect to be the biggest or an important trend in the next few years? Trend, yeah.
Who do you want to ask? What do you guys think is going to be an important trend in the next few years? Any volunteers? There you go. Professor.
The biggest trend in the next few years is going to be no limited edition, but really hard to get. Yeah.
Well, I will not use a trend to describe because now, particularly for us, we are mainly dealing with independent. Independent is very, very niche and very unique. They are working on a very, very clear direction with a small selection of collection. And they are also very hesitant to claim, we are on trend about this and that. But if you look in the industry for the past few years, yes, we are playing a lot with different kind of color. You see quite different kind of color is being played, blue, green, even purple. For some stage, I think maybe pink is in the air, and I'm longing for to wear pink watch, and it does happen. But I think what we are doing right now is already very, very interesting and very blooming in terms of the design. Complication is always the main focus for us as independent, and I would not see any further what they can change. But I believe most of them will come back to the basic, focus on the movement in complication.
I think that a key trend in the next few years, especially for the independents, would be uniqueness. So, most independent brands don't want to be the second Patek or the second Vacheron or the second Rolex or maybe the 10th. But there's this drive to be special, to be different somehow. So why would someone buy a new brand, unheard of, over an established brand with established secondary market value? So why would someone buy and invest his or her hard-earned money in that unknown brand? And they can be quite expensive at times as well. Obviously, it's uniqueness. They've got to be something different and something sometimes wildly different from the norm. So if you look at, say, Chaikin's Joker, obviously, or similar funny watches where they put a certain level of joy into your heart when you wear them, that's something special. And I think we'll see more and more of that in the next few years. Definitely from me, you'll see something like that. So hopefully more to come.
I just want to add, I think one trend that I like to see is putting luxury back into shopping. Because right now, there's nothing luxury about buying a watch from a big brand. You go in, you have to kowtow, bend over backward, give them your business card, they're gonna run through your background check. There's nothing luxury about it. I want luxury to come back to luxury watches. I hope this trend, I hope one brand will come and start stomping the ground and say, listen, we need to put luxury back into the shopping experience. I sincerely hope that we're gonna see that again.
Please visit our shop in Peninsula.
Visit www.
Well, I think that's all we have time for today. But thank you for the panel speakers for your time. Very inspirational. Thank you. Very insightful. Always a pleasure to speak with you guys. I'm sure the audience shares the same feeling. Thank you, guys.